Ladies and gentlemen, how we doing? It is a Case 4 on Q101. I'm Case. This is a Case 4. This is a show in which I have coerced management into letting me talk to my favorite bands. And I am always excited when we can be local. I am always excited when I can bring a hardcore band into a space like the Lounge, where normally we do acoustic performances. And I have managed to combine both of those things today. I'm here with Jordan from Kharma. Man, how you doing?
I'm doing good, dude. Thank you for having me.
Of course. It's a pleasure. Now, this interview will be both available in video and audio, so I'm going to unfortunately kick our audio people to the curb for a second because you came in with some drip that I was not expecting. We have to reference the video here, a Minoru Suzuki Pancrase shirt off the bat. I have to apologize. I was unfamiliar with your game. I didn't know we were doing stuff like this. Let's talk Minoru Suzuki for a second.
All right.
Cool dude, right?
He's a maniac.
That's fantastic. That is just a great shirt. I have to mention that off the bat.
Had to show off a little bit.
I appreciate that. No, you brought your best. I really like it. Is that a Prince necklace also?
Yeah, it is.
Talk to me about Prince. I never could get into him.
Really, my favorite artist ever, like any genre.
Really?
But I think it's coming from my dad so my middle name is Nelson because Prince's last name was Nelson. So like from birth, I have to like Prince.
So you named after Prince?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
What kind of music? Talk to me first of all. Where'd you grow up? Are you from here?
I live in Bolingbrook.
That's
so
right. All right. So that's kind of your hood. Yeah, right on. Talk to me early on. Music in your house going on. Okay. Were your parents musical people? At what point did you feel like you got introduced to music and started to care about it, let's say?
Okay. So my dad, like I said, he loved Prince from like beginning always. It was Prince and wrestling in my house. That was like the two things he was into heavily.
That's good parenting.
Yeah. Hey. I'm not complaining. So yeah, my dad was listening to like heavy like Prince, funk, jazz, stuff like that, and then also like a lot of early hip hop. So like LL Cool J, like, and like the R&B side, like New Edition, all that stuff too. And then my mom was like heavily into like hair metal, so like AC/DC, Quiet Riot, Poison, all that stuff. So it's a little bit of both, a little bit of everything.
This suddenly makes your band make a whole lot more sense.
Yeah.
Wow. It's like I was already into what you guys were doing, but now I see these influences. At what point did you come across hardcore? Do you remember having like a spark point where you were like, this is something that I now need in my life?
Yeah. So when I was like probably like 11 or 12, my cousin had a boyfriend at the time who played in like a local metalcore band, and I went to one of their shows. And
always the gateway,
yeah.
Always the local metalcore band.
And they were like kids moshing. I'm like, what is this? This is crazy. So from there, I picked up a bass. I first started learning bass, and actually the guitarist of Kharma and our drummer were my first band ever. Like we were like 12 years old playing like local shows. We were terrible, but still kept it all this time.
How do you survive in a band with people like that for that long?
That's a good question. We're making it work. Those are my brothers, man.
Good. Now, when you're in that first band with those guys, you guys doing hardcore music, hardcore adjacent music, or are we playing classic rock?
No, it was like deathcore, like
really
terrible deathcore. But yeah.
So we're talking. Are you a 12-year-old growling up on stage?
Our guitarist now was the vocalist of that band.
Okay.
And he was doing all that.
That's crazy. That's ballsy. Did you guys ever do like a talent show? Where does a 12-year-old deathcore band play?
So we did. The first time I've ever played in front of people, I was playing bass, and me and the guitarist of that band played Psychosocial by Slipknot at our talent show. Yeah.
How'd that go over?
We didn't have a drummer, so it was like a drum track and us playing, and then the drum track skipped. So
no
we were just
way.
It was rough.
That is tough. Well, luckily, things have gone okay since.
Yeah, I think so.
I think we're in a good space here. Let me ask you, because you weren't the vocalist there, but obviously you're fronting Kharma now,
yeah.
And I would say, I think it's a fair assessment. Anybody that's heard a second of your band would say you have a pretty distinct vocal style. It's not something I hear a lot throughout hardcore. At what point did you realize you have this superpower that you can hit the notes that you hit?
I just kind of tried.
That's what I'm always afraid of, right? So, like, I've never played in a band, and I there have been moments in my life where I'm like, I should be in a youth crew band. That'd be a good thing for me, and it's never happened. But part of that is I feel like I'm holding back inside, and I'm afraid to let that beast out of the cage.
Anybody can do it. Just try.
Really?
I feel like hardcore is very like accessible as like compared to other types of music where you can just like pick it up and do it.
What was the moment where, moving away from, I guess maybe we don't have to move away from metalcore, but what was the point where you were like, I'm doing this. I'm committing to it. I've played in my 12-year-old deathcore band, but I'm still, I have a taste for this and I want to do it. Was there a band that made you go like, oh, I have to be them, or was it just the Chicago scene in general? What was it?
So I'm 26, and when I was coming up, there was like most of the hardcore shows were 17 and up.
Oh, really? Okay.
So like, I didn't get to see any of the hardcore bands really until like I was young, like older. But one that I did see was Terror. They would do all those like mixed bill tours.
That's
and
right.
They played out in Joliet with, I don't remember who it was, but Terror was there, and that was the first time I heard of Terror or saw Terror, and that was like the first hardcore band, like straight up hardcore band I saw. And I saw them. People were diving off there's like pillars at Mojo's, and they were like diving off the pillars, and I was just like, all right, this is different. I want this.
The first hardcore show is a fascinating human experience.
Yeah,
like I'm a full believer. Everybody should go to one. We work, so I'm on the morning show here. It's Brian and Kenzie and myself, and Kenzie loves alt rock, Pumpkins, Nirvana, but doesn't stray too far in one direction. And I was explaining to her last year, because Fiddlehead played the Metro, and it's not like they're the heaviest band of all time, but I consider them to be a hardcore band. And I told her the next day, she was asking me about it, and I was like, well, it was such a bummer because there was a barricade there, and she was like, what? Like, what do you mean? And I go, well, normally, like, you can get up on stage and dive off, and she's like, well, what if I have a drink in my hand? I go, then I wouldn't. I would move to the back of the room. And I remember, like, my first hardcore show, and I'm curious if you feel the same way, where, like, the room is just different, and it's like you almost lose control of your senses because it's all so much. Did you feel that way seeing Terror for the first time?
Yeah, it was like, I was young too, so I had to be like 15 or 16. So it's like all these older dudes. I'm like looking around, like, what is going on? Like, I was like going to like metalcore, deathcore shows. You see like moshing, but like you don't see kids going crazy like they do to Terror. Like, it's a whole different thing.
I will be seeing them for the first time on those Drain shows coming up here in Chicago, because I've still never seen them, and I'm scared. That's a scary fan base. Like, Kharma's, we got people in that crowd that hit hard, but I feel like you guys are all things considered pretty cool. I'm afraid to piss off a Terror fan. I don't know what's gonna happen.
Terror fans are more like it's like more stage dives and just like energy than anything. I feel like, because they also have like mosh parts, but like they're just like an energy. Like,
no, they're crazy. I mean, it's a well-oiled machine. It's the closest I think hardcore has to like a factory band, and I mean that as a compliment, where it's like you know the drill with them now.
Yeah.
They're not going to do anything crazy. Your band still evolving. I think evolving in all the right ways. You have a new record coming out. By the time people hear this, it will be out. So A World of Our Own out on Flatspot Records. Talk to me about this. First of all, what's in your stomach right now? What are you feeling? Because most people, the public, hasn't heard this record yet.
Yeah.
What's going on in your head?
Just excited, man. We finished recording this record December of 2022.
Really?
Yeah. So it's been 14, 16 months.
Yeah,
almost.
we're coming up on a year and a half, basically. Yeah.
It's been a long time coming. So just the whole process has been like so much that I'm just so excited to get it out.
Can you talk to me about that? Because obviously, here at Q101, outside of this specific show, we gear more towards, major labels and big industry bands. But when you're a hardcore band, can you just sort of take me through the timeline of like, all right, guys, we're recording a record. What is every step in between until the record comes out?
Yeah. So we recorded with John Markson at the Animal Farm in New Jersey, which is like, it's not just a name, it's actually on a farm. There's like cows and chickens.
Really?
Yeah, it's awesome. There's a cow. There was one cow, and I think there's two, but there's one cow named Harold, and every morning, we were there for like 2 weeks. Every morning I would wake up, grab some coffee, grab a drink or something, walk outside, talk to Harold before everybody wakes up, come back inside. It was awesome. But
does Harold get thanked on the record liner notes?
Yeah.
Does he really? That's fantastic.
I love Harold. He was cool. Like, he would let you pet him and stuff. He would like walk up to you. Like, it was like a very friendly cow.
Oh, good.
I'd never pet a cow until that moment.
Yeah, I'd hate for you to have a mean cow in your life. That'd be awful.
Be a whole different record.
Yeah, exactly. It'd be the most pissed off record ever. It's like, yo, you want to believe it? This cow, man. This cow's pissing me off. All right, so you're on the farm. You've got Harold the cow. Kind of walk me through the rest of that process.
Okay, so we do the record. We're there for 2 weeks, and then we're just kind of waiting a little bit. And John, he does like a lot of stuff, and he plays in Such Gold also, so he was touring. And it's just waiting for the first mix to come back, and then we have to make adjustments on the mix, and then wait for the second mix and the third mix, and then this is all like a week or two between things. So like it kind of that drags out a little bit, and then mastering after that, and then after that there's all the artwork and then the vinyl, and then it's just a whole long process.
How are vinyl return rates at this point? Because I know during the pandemic it was a big thing where it was like, hey, you're waiting 18 months if you want to put out a new record. I don't know, because I guess it just fell out of the news cycle. Is it better now? Can you get vinyl at a decent rate at this point?
It was a little bit better, but it's still not. I don't think it's what it was before the pandemic. Okay. I still think they're a little backed up, but it wasn't 18 months at least, so I can't complain that much.
The artwork on the record is sick. Do you want to talk about that at all?
Yeah, Jose, he works with a lot of Flatspot stuff. He's like Flatspot's main designer, and so basically the artwork, for people who haven't seen it, it's a guy basically just sort of, it's based off the in Scarface, there's the World Is Yours statue. That was where the idea came from, and it's not really like, he's not really holding up the world, but it's kind of symbolizing that. So like, it's a guy with the Chicago skyline behind him, and then a globe sort of behind him, and it's just, I wanted to be able to look at it and know, one, where we're from, and two, just kind of the aesthetic of the album cover kind of match the sound of it.
I'm so glad right now, and obviously throughout the history of Chicago hardcore, we've had a few heavy hitters that we can really rep, and I feel like you guys are being ushered into that spotlight right now. In alt rock and indie rock, the conversation that's happening is like, hey, Chicago's kind of back. Like, there's a lot of cool Chicago bands in the scene right now. Can you talk to me about, maybe for people that don't know, because a lot of people might not be hip to your band, but you're local, so people want to know, what's the Chicago hardcore scene like? Who are the bands people need to check out? What's the camaraderie like? Can you just kind of real quick give the brief lowdown on Chicago hardcore?
Yeah, definitely. There's so many bands around here. From like, The Killer is like the holy grail. Yeah, the holy grail of Chicago hardcore. That's like the first band I always have to mention. But right now there's bands like Hold My Own. There's a new band called Spent Case that's really cool. Bitter Thoughts, Grounds of Execution.
That's
There's
right.
so many
That's
bands.
right.
So
I'm always sure to mention Buggin', Lurk, who we've had on
yep.
this show. The guys in Lurk are great.
Yeah, they're awesome.
Were you at that Hold My Own Sub T show?
No, I missed that one, but it looked crazy.
It was a fun time. It was a good time.
Awesome.
That was good stuff. It was. I think walking to Sub T that night, I believe it was the real temperature was about -4 degrees outside, and the wind chill was so much worse. It was walking. I took the blue line there, then on the way back to Logan Square. The walk from the Logan Square Blue Line stop to my girl's apartment might have been the coldest I've ever been.
Wow.
But before that, I was so warm with
it.
all my friends. I mean, it was just absolutely delightful.
100% worth it.
So with the record, first of all, that process is I would imagine pretty painstaking. Are there things now that are in your head of like, oh, if only we would have done this, or are you pretty content with things as a whole?
Honestly, I'm pretty happy with it.
Good.
I think since that was the longest I've ever taken like recording a record, so we were kind of like pretty asinine on how we were fixing things or having tried new ideas. So I think since we were there for 2 weeks actually figuring out the record, I think it has like a more full, fulfilling feeling with it.
Good. So I'm curious about this. I would imagine you have your own favorite thing on the record that you're dying that whether somebody tweets at you about it or they come up to you at the merch table about it. What's the one thing that you're most excited for people to hear on this record?
That's tough. I think that's a tough question.
I know.
You kind of stumped me right there.
I bring the heavy hitters here.
You did.
Because there's 12 tracks on it.
Yeah.
The singles I've heard have been excellent. They've all been super heavy. Is there a breakdown you like? Are there certain lyrics you like? What's that one thing that is going to brighten your day if somebody goes, hey, man, I heard this on this track, and, man, that was good?
I think my favorite track is this track called Living in Vain. I think it's the 5th. I'm going to say the 5th.
I'll take your word for it. It's your album, not mine.
It's probably the 5th track, but I think that's my favorite track on it. That's not a single already. Mm-hmm. My favorite song we've ever written is the first single, Clip Your Wings.
Yeah.
That's like...
Talk to me about that, because I heard that and I was taken aback by, again, the heaviness of it, but just the overall production and presentation of it I thought was super impressive. How did that song come about?
So that was actually the last song we wrote for this record, and on the chorus, if you want to call it that, there's a like background singing, and I was walking around the studio just kind of like messing around, and I was doing it, and then John was like, yo, you should try that, and I was like, nah. Then he said it like 2 more times. He's like, you know what, I'll try it, and I loved it. So
good. Well, I'm glad it's in there. That's really good stuff.
I love it.
The new record is out on Flatspot, and I want to be sure to mention them because I think hardcore is unique in the sense that a lot of eras, I think, can be defined by specific labels. You have, your Discord bands and your Rev bands and your Victory bands, and then, by the time I was getting into it, I feel like Bridge 9 was sort of transitioning out and Triple B was becoming the thing. Yeah. But when you look at this era of hardcore, and it's an era of growth specifically, the label that I'm going to remember, that I'm going to associate this time period with, is Flatspot.
Definitely.
What is it about this crew that is so special? What is in the water over there that is just constantly pumping out new, cool records?
I think Ricky and Shay just have like a good eye for bands. I think every band on the roster is like different enough, and also like they all fit together, if that makes sense. Like they all have not a similar vibe, but just I think every time I've been around a Flatspot band, we're all chilling. It's all like cool people. Like Life's Question, they're putting out a record the week after ours. They're Chicago hardcore. They're not really like, they don't live here anymore, but they did. So
yeah, where are they at?
them.
Minneapolis now?
Maryland.
Maryland. That's
area.
what I knew. It was an
Baltimore,
M state.
Philly.
Yeah. Right
Yeah.
on.
So I'm still claiming them in Chicago hardcore.
We'll take them.
But I love all those people. Josh Haynes, one of my favorite people ever. They're incredible. Speed's like one of the biggest bands in hardcore.
The Speed show at Sub T last year was crazy, and it was kind of one of those where you've got your good shows, and then you've got your shows that feel like a moment, and that was where it was like, yo, this is on a different level. This is just a different show than your average hardcore show at Sub T.
Yeah, that was their first U.S. shows ever, and we were lucky enough to be able to do the first. Like,
that's right. You were on the leg that wasn't in Chicago.
Yeah.
Well, how was it touring with those guys?
It's crazy. They're awesome dudes. I'm excited to see them when they come back with Knock Loose. It's gonna be awesome. It was really fun to just see like a band from so far get the love that they're getting. It's crazy how like hardcore is universal, man. It's awesome.
That's right. Well, let's end on this, because again, Q101 audience is maybe not always geared into hardcore, but they're geared into Chicago, and I want to be sure that people know about your band, but that also we share some love with the scene.
Definitely.
This is a bold question.
Okay.
But can you possibly, real quick, rattle off your Mount Rushmore of hardcore records? The things that, let's say they're watching this and they don't know your band, they don't know hardcore, they don't know Minor Threat. What are the 4 that they have to stop this interview and go listen to?
All hardcore.
All hardcore. Or I'll give you metalcore too.
I'm going to go hardcore.
All right.
Satisfaction, Hatebreed.
Yes.
Marauder, Master Killer.
Bold.
King 9, Scared to Death.
Wow.
And Killing Time, Brightside.
Wow, very Chicago there. The only one I would add to the list is Kharma, A World of Our Own, which is out by the time you are listening to this. Jordan, thank you so much, man. I wish you the best. I love your band.
Appreciate you, dude.
Have a good one.
Thank you.